All right, so what we're going to do this morning is we're going to talk a little bit about stretching and the difference between pain and discomfort. So, pain says something's wrong, and discomfort says that this is needed. And I think sometimes we can struggle with distinguishing the difference, especially if we're already in pain, because anything that remotely resembles pain can be scary, especially if we're struggling with low back pain and it's radiating down the leg or whatever that might be. So what I want to do is I want to go through a handful of examples of stretching, and I'm going to do it with you guys. And so I would encourage, if you have the space, if you have the time, go ahead and follow along. But I'm going to talk you through some of the specifics that I think are important. So the devil is in the details. One of the most important things to remember is that your anatomy is different than mine. So you should never be trying to resemble or mimic my movements. You need to pay attention to what your body's feedback is. How is your body communicating with you? Because your torso length, your tib fib length, your femur length, your ankle mobility, all that stuff is going to be different. So we should never be trying to do what somebody else is doing. So one of the first stretches that I like to go through is a simple hamstring stretch. And these are things that I do on a daily basis. So contrary to popular belief, this is not the best way to stretch our hamstrings. If I wanted to stretch my hamstring, this is about all I have. And now the rest of this is coming from lumbar flexion. So this is lower back flexibility to get anywhere past this position. So, but we also have the origin, the belly, and the insertion of the hamstrings that comes down around the calf area as well. So we can hit all three of those differently. And then how do we know what's painful and what's just needed discomfort? One of the rules of stretching that I like to go by is if you can't take a full deep breath, it's probably too far. So more is not always better. And then if you can't hold that position for an extended period of time, like a couple of minutes, then you're probably stretching too hard as well. Now, that can get pretty complicated depending on what the goal is and if we're adding some contractions and things with that. So some PNF, contract, relax. So let's start with the hamstring stretch here. So we're just going to start in a half kneeling position here. Now, if I straighten my leg here and I slightly start to hinge my hips forward, I'm going to feel this immediately all behind the knee. So this is going to be more towards the insertion of the hamstring. Now, understanding where the attachment points are is important, because as soon as I start dumping my pelvis into this anterior tilt, that's maximizing the length of the hamstring. So that's going to be important to remember, because now that I'm here, before I even lean forward, if I just focus on that pelvic tilt right here, now I have a much bigger stretch in the hamstring as well. So if I go ahead and I bring this foot a little closer in, I maximize that extension of the low back and I lean into this. So I'm just dropping my elbow on my knee. I'm really focusing on pushing my butt out and up. And this is going to be going right into the belly of the hamstring. And I'm going to play around with how far do I want to straighten my leg? Do I want to keep it more bent? Because if I keep it more bent and I continue to come forward here and I kind of let my hip open up and I sink in between my legs. Now, this is going more into the insertion of the hamstring up around the ischial tuberosity, which is that kind of bony structure on your butt. So if I come down here, I can place my hands on the floor, but I'm still focusing on extending my lower back. Even if it looks like I'm bending my lumbar spine, I'm still trying to push my butt to the ceiling, and this is stretching the origin of the hamstring. So now I can straighten that leg a little bit. I'm still focusing on the same thing, but now this is coming to the belly. So what I'm focused on here is I'm taking big, deep breaths. And this is uncomfortable If I push it any harder, this is going to be hard for me to hold for any more than a minute. But I want to hold this stretch for at least a minute, probably up to 2 minutes. And I'm just focused on breathing. Now, we can get a lot more complicated with this. I can start opening here, and we're going to feel a little bit of a different stretch. I can also allow that foot to turn in, and now I'm reaching across the leg, and I'm hinging down. This is coming on that lateral aspect of the insertion of the hamstring. So it's that outer head of the hamstring where we're feeling this. So there isn't just one way to stretch a muscle. We are not fragile. We want to start building durability. And I think one of the best things to do that is kind of remove all the parameters that we have been taught through maybe your sports or different coaches or people in the past, that it's just kind of been this cookie cutter approach and everybody does the same thing, because that's not the best way for us to figure out our bodies. What science has started to teach us is that everybody is different, and research is good, but at the end of the day, we need to listen to ourselves and what our body is telling us. So again, devil is in the details of playing around with what's going to feel the best for you. So let's go through another stretch here that I like to do for the upper body. So for the T-spine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by laying down. I'm going to press up into a cobra. And now I'm going to slide one knee up. So when this knee comes up, now what I'm doing is I'm going to post on that opposite side. I'm going to take this free hand and I'm going to swim it through. So if you're doing this with me, what I want you to do is you're going to try to lay on that shoulder. We're taking this hand, we're pushing off the floor, putting pressure into this shoulder here. And now I'm looking at the ceiling. Listen to my breathing, big deep breaths, making sure I can get a full inhale, and I'm trying to make this slightly uncomfortable. So again, devil's in the details. Now, what happens if I open that foot up on the side that the knee is up? So see how different that feels. What happens if I take this arm and I slide it further up? How different does this feel? And these are things that we want to start exploring when it comes to stretching, because we're going to move a lot differently. So now we can start getting into basically figuring out where our body is tight specifically and where we need to spend more time. So when you do this on both sides, you're also going to notice that one side feels a little easier than the other. So this side is always a little bit tighter for me. It's always a little more difficult. So how do I maximize this stretch for me? So I'm even going to play around with my pelvic tilting. So I'm extending my spine, and now I'm trying to tuck my butt under. How different is that micro adjustment there? What happens when I look this way? Does that feel better or worse? What happens when I look to the ceiling? I definitely get a much better stretch on the right side of my lower back when I'm maximizing my rotation towards the ceiling and I'm pushing off the floor into my opposite shoulder. And now when I take a full deep breath here, I'm using that rib cage expansion to put more length on the muscles. So that's important. Anytime we breathe, remember, everything's connected, so it's going to target something differently. It's going to put a different amount of tension in the body. Now, one of the last things that I want to go through is what I call just it's like a free form. So I do this every morning for about, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes. And this probably started from my wrestling days. I was a wrestler through high school and college. But one of the things that I really like to do is I like to get into a position like this where I'm tucking my head, I'm stretching my neck, and I just like to feel what part of my neck and
upper back feels tight. And now I'm working my way around to the other side. So I can even go into walking my feet around. Now, from this position, this might look funny to some of you, but I'm telling you, getting into these positions feels amazing for the body, and we want to maximize our body's movement capabilities. We don't want to lose the ability to do these things. We're only getting older. So the older that we get, the harder this stuff becomes. And you know what? You got to say screw what everybody else thinks. I get a lot of stares in the gym from some of the things that I do, and rightfully so. But I can also tell you that I move better than 90% of the population because I do weird things and I make sure that my body has the capability to do them and that I'm never going to lose it. So that's gonna set me up to not get injured as I get older and to stay more pain managed. So now what I'm doing here is as I walk, watch my head. I'm turning my head the opposite way as I walk my legs over. Now I'm taking this knee and I'm trying to drive it into the floor and I'm trying to tuck my chin and I'm trying to look at my chest and seeing how does that feel. Now, when I straighten this leg, I get a big stretch down my hamstring. It's actually more of a nerve floss. It feels super deep. So when I pulse back and forth here, I love doing this before my deadlift days because it gets my whole spine ready to go. It also gets the nerves that are connected to the spine and that are waking up or needed to activate the hamstring muscles ready to go. So now I can shift sides and see how does that feel. So now I'm going to turn my head slightly in the opposite direction. When I get here, I notice that I feel a lot tighter. So I might spend a little bit more time here just hanging out in this position. Again, making sure that I'm able to take that full deep breath. So now I might actually push a more uncomfortable position for just a few seconds, and I might focus on maybe trying to contract the opposite side muscles. So I'm trying to drive my knee further to the floor, and then I'll relax that for a few seconds. It's a good way to wake up fibers. It's a good way to get more fibers engaged. So now I'm hanging out here. I'm going to pulse that leg. I'm getting that hamstring nerve warmed up so I can feel that going all radiating all the way up underneath what feels like my glute. And then I'll spend time right here in the center and I'll do the same thing, both legs, same time. And you'll feel this going all the way down the hamstrings and into the glutes here. But again, each of those positions, I'm never in a position where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is painful. So again, pain is going to tell us that something feels wrong, and I think we all know that feeling of like something doesn't feel right. So we really got to do a better job of trying to distinguish the difference between discomfort and pain, and understanding that in order to have order, sometimes disorder is needed to get there. So it really allows us to start exploring. And one of my favorite things to say is know what not to do and explore the rest. So make sure you ask questions. I do have a social media page as well. It's joshua.d.bruning. And you can DM me on there at any time. I have a ton of experience in the strength and conditioning realm, the corrective exercise realm. I worked as a PTA for a chiropractor for a long time, and I run a soft tissue business as well, helping people figure out things with their biomechanics and their corrective exercise that's going to help them be more pain managed. And I say pain managed because I don't like using the term pain free. We're always probably going to have some type of pain that comes up just because of life's demands. But learning how to manage those things and not let them get out of control, and making sure that we're able to stay active and stay moving, I think is super important.
So like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, if you stuck with me all the way through it. That's awesome. But other than that, have a good day, and thanks for watching.